The morning sun rose over New Haven like it had for the past 15 years. Golden light spread across the green fields where wheat grew tall and strong. In the distance, the city of promise gleamed with its white buildings and clean streets. Children played in parks while their parents worked in the farms and factories that made life here so good. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the small military base. She watched farmers drive their machines through the fields. The sight always made her smile. This was what humanity could do when they put their minds to it. They had turned a dead rock into a world full of life. "Another quiet day," said Lieutenant Marcus Webb as he joined her. He carried 2 cups of coffee, steam rising in the cool morning air. Sarah took the cup and nodded. "Just the way I like it. 15 years and the most exciting thing we've done is chase away some wild animals from the crops." Marcus laughed. "Remember, when we first got here, everyone thought we'd be fighting aliens by now." "The galaxy is big," Sarah said. "Plenty of room for everyone." She was right about that. Humans had spread to 47 worlds in 50 years. Each colony was different. Some mined metals from dead planets. Others grew food like New Haven. A few studied strange alien life forms, but all of them were peaceful. Humans had learned from Earth's mistakes. They took only what they needed, and always tried to work with nature, not against it. The communication console beeped. Sarah walked over and pressed the button. "This is Commander Chen." "Ma'am, we're getting the weekly report from Earth," said Sergeant Kim from the radio room. "Everything looks normal. Supply ship is still on schedule for next month." "Good. Anything else?" "The science team wants permission to study those crystal formations in the North Valley. They think there might be some kind of rare minerals there." Sarah approved the request. The science team was always finding something interesting. Last month they had discovered a type of bacteria that could clean polluted water. The month before that they found plants that could grow in almost any soil. New Haven was not just a farming colony. It was a laboratory for making better worlds. The base was small. Only 200 soldiers lived there. Most of them spent their time helping colonists with construction projects or rescue operations. They had weapons, but the guns stayed locked in storage. The biggest threat they faced was the occasional storm or equipment failure. At noon, Sarah walked through Promise City. The streets were busy with people going about their daily lives. The market sold fresh vegetables and fruits. Children attended school in buildings that humans had built with their own hands. The hospital treated small injuries and delivered babies. It was a normal, happy place. "Commander Chen," called out Mayor Patricia Santos. She was a short woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "How are things at the base?" "Quiet as always," Sarah replied. "How's the harvest looking?" "Better than ever. We'll have enough surplus to ship to 3 other colonies this year. The soil treatment program is working perfectly." Sarah felt proud. New Haven fed people on distant worlds. Their success proved that humans could build without destroying. They could grow without taking from others. That afternoon she met with the Colony Council. They discussed plans for a new school and a larger hospital. The population had grown to 48,000 people. Soon they would need more housing and better roads. "We should also think about expanding the spaceport," suggested Dr. Rachel Moore, the head of the science division. "More ships are coming each month to study our research." "Good idea," Sarah said. "I'll contact Earth about getting more construction equipment." The meeting ended as the sun began to set. Sarah returned to the base feeling satisfied. Tomorrow would be another peaceful day in paradise. But far across the galaxy, other beings watched humanity's growth with very different feelings. Ambassador Kethvar of the Zilithian Empire stood before the Hegemony Council. His blue skin looked almost black in the dim light of the Great Chamber. Around him sat representatives of 12 ancient alien species. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. "The humans spread too fast," Kethvar said in his harsh voice. 47 colonies in 50 years. This is not normal expansion, this is invasion. The hegemony had been watching humanity since they first left Earth. At first, the aliens were not worried. New species appeared all the time. Most stayed close to their home worlds. They grew slowly and carefully. They knew their place. Humans were different. They moved quickly from world to world. They built big cities and huge farms. They changed entire planets to suit their needs. Worse, they were good at it. Their colonies thrived while other species struggled to maintain even one world outside their home system. "They have not attacked anyone," said Ambassador Yeleth of the Peaceful Collective. Her voice was soft and musical. "Their colonies produce food and medicine. They trade fairly with all who approach them." "For now," Kethvar snarled. "But what happens when they have 100 colonies? 1,000? They will control every trade route, every resource, every strategic position in our part of the galaxy." The debate continued for hours. Some council members wanted to establish diplomatic relations with humanity. Others suggested economic pressure. But Kethvar had a different idea. "We must show them their place," he said. "One demonstration. One colony destroyed. They will understand that there are limits to their expansion." The vote was close. 7 species supported action. 4 opposed it. 1 abstained. The decision was made. Back on New Haven, Sarah Chen had no idea that her world had been chosen. She ate dinner with her staff and discussed plans for the next day. The night was clear and full of stars. Some of those stars had human colonies around them. Others were home to alien species that humans had never met. At midnight, the long-range sensors detected something approaching the system. The signature looked like a convoy of cargo ships. Earth often sent surprise supply runs when they had excess materials. "Probably bringing us those new water purification units we requested," said the Night Watch officer. Sarah was asleep in her quarters. She dreamed of green fields and happy children. In her dream, New Haven had grown into a great city with millions of people. Ships came from across the galaxy to trade and learn. Humans and aliens worked together to build an even better future. She did not know that 37 alien warships were moving through the darkness toward her world. Their commanders had orders to destroy every human on the planet. They would leave no survivors, no witnesses, no one to tell the story of what happened here. The Hegemony Council believed that fear would stop human expansion. They thought one dead colony would teach humanity to stay in their place. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. As the alien fleet approached New Haven, other ships moved in the darkness of space. Hidden facilities throughout human space began receiving coded signals. In secret bases that no alien knew existed, crews reported to their stations. Weapons that had waited decades for this moment powered up for the first time. The galaxy was about to change forever. But for now, the people of New Haven slept peacefully under their beautiful stars, unaware that their quiet world was about to become the spark that lit a fire across the cosmos. The last night of peace was ending. Soon, the universe would learn what happened when someone hurt humanity's children. The attack began at sunrise. Sarah Chen woke to the sound of alarms screaming through the base. Red lights flashed in her quarters as she grabbed her uniform and ran toward the command center. Outside her window, she could see strange lights in the sky. "Report!" she shouted as she burst into the control room. Lieutenant Webb's face was white with shock. "Ma'am, we have 37 unknown ships in orbit. They're not responding to any communications." Sarah looked at the main display screen. The alien ships were huge, much larger than any human vessel. Their designs were sharp and angular, built for war. She had never seen anything like them. "Have they made any demands?" she asked. "Nothing, ma'am. They just appeared and took positions around the planet." Sarah opened all communication channels. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Sarah Chen of the New Haven Defense Force. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Silence. She tried again. "We are a peaceful colony. If you need assistance or supplies, we are happy to help." Still nothing. Then the shooting started. Beams of energy fell from the sky like deadly rain. The first target was the spaceport. Sarah watched in horror as the landing pads melted under the alien weapons. Ships that had brought families to their new home exploded in balls of fire. "All units, battle stations," Sarah commanded. "Launch the defense platforms. New Haven had 6 small defense satellites. They were meant to destroy asteroids or hostile wildlife, not fight a war. The platforms rose from hidden silos and began firing their tiny weapons at the massive alien fleet. The alien response was swift and brutal. Energy beams reached out and touched each platform. They simply vanished, turned to vapor in an instant. "Get me Earth Command," Sarah shouted over the noise of more explosions. "I'm trying, ma'am." Sergeant Kim frantically worked at his console. "The communications array is gone. They hit it in the first wave." The bombardment continued. Sarah watched, on her screens as Promise City began to burn. The hospital where babies were born yesterday was now a crater. The school where children learned to read was a pile of rubble. The market where neighbors met each morning was gone. "Why are they doing this?" Webb asked, his voice breaking. Sarah didn't have an answer. The aliens weren't trying to capture anything. They weren't landing troops or making demands. They were just killing everyone they could find. "Emergency broadcast to all colonists," she ordered. "Head for the underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. The shelters had been built years ago just in case. Most people thought they were unnecessary. New Haven was too far from anywhere important. No one would ever attack them." Sarah's portable radio crackled with desperate voices. "This is Hospital 3. We need help. The building is collapsing. Emergency. Services to Sector 7. There are people trapped in the rubble. My daughter is missing. Has anyone seen my daughter?" Each voice was a knife in Sarah's heart. These were her people. She was supposed to protect them. The bombardment went on for hours. The aliens worked systematically, destroying every building, every farm, every sign that humans had ever lived here. Their weapons were designed to kill efficiently. No energy was wasted. No target was missed twice. By noon, Promise City was gone. The other settlements suffered the same fate. 48,000 people had lived on New Haven that morning. By evening, only 3,000 remained alive in the deep shelters. Sarah stood in the main bunker, surrounded by terrified families. Children cried for their parents who would never come home. Adults stared at the walls in shock, unable to understand what had happened to their perfect world. "Commander," called out Dr. Moore. She was covered in dust from the collapsed science center. "The radiation detectors are going crazy. They're not just bombing us, they're poisoning the planet." Sarah checked the readings herself. The aliens were using weapons that made the ground toxic. Nothing would grow here for decades. Even if some humans survived, they could never rebuild. This wasn't war. It was murder. As night fell, the bombardment finally stopped. Sarah's remaining equipment detected the alien ships scanning the planet's surface. They were checking to make sure nothing was left alive above ground. She gathered her surviving officers in the shelter's command room. "We need to get a message to Earth," she said quietly. "They have to know what happened here." "The communications array is destroyed," Webb reminded her. "Even if we had portable units, the aliens would detect any transmission." Sarah thought for a moment. The old mining station in the eastern mountains. It had an emergency beacon. If anyone could reach it. "That's 50 kilometers through the wasteland," said Sergeant Kim. "The radiation levels would kill anyone in hours." "Someone has to try," Sarah said firmly. "Earth needs to know." She selected a team of volunteers. They put on the best radiation suits available and loaded a ground vehicle with supplies. Their mission was simple: reach the old beacon and send one message to Earth before the radiation killed them. The team left the shelter at midnight. Sarah watched them disappear into the poisoned darkness. She knew she would never see them again. 3 days passed. The aliens remained in orbit, making sure no humans tried to escape. On the 4th day, they detected a weak signal from the mountains. Someone had reached the old beacon. The message was short and filled with static. "This is Sergeant Kim to Earth Command. New Haven is gone. Everyone is dead. Alien fleet destroyed the colony without warning. They used weapons to poison the planet. Tell Earth, make them pay." Then the signal died. The alien ship scanned the mountain region and fired one more time. The beacon and everyone near it was turned to dust. Satisfied that no humans remained alive, the alien fleet prepared to leave. Their mission was complete. They had sent a clear message about humanity's place in the galaxy. The humans would see the ruins of New Haven and understand that they must stop expanding so quickly. But the aliens had made one critical mistake. They assumed that humans would react like other species. They expected fear, negotiation, and submission. They had never studied human history very carefully. If they had, they would have learned that humans had a saying, "If you want peace, prepare for war." Unknown to the galaxy, humanity had been preparing for war for 50 years. As the alien fleet jumped away from New Haven's dead system, automated signals were already racing toward Earth and every human colony. The signals carried a single coded message: "Colony down. Execute Omega Protocol." In hidden bases throughout human space, military personnel who had trained their entire lives for this moment reported to their stations. Massive ships that had waited decades in secret facilities began powering up their engines. The aliens thought they had sent a message to Earth. Instead, they had sent a declaration of war to the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The sleeping giant was about to wake up, and when it did, the cosmos would shake. The message reached Earth 3 days after the attack. President Maria Martinez stood in the emergency briefing room deep beneath the Capitol. The room had been built 50 years ago when humanity first reached the stars. It was designed for exactly this moment, though everyone had hoped it would never be used. "Show me," she said quietly. The main screen displayed what remained of New Haven. Satellite images showed the dead planet from orbit. Black craters marked where cities once stood. The green fields were now gray wasteland. Nothing moved on the surface. 48,000 people, said Admiral Elena Vasquez, the commander of Earth's defense forces. Gone in a single day. Martinez closed her eyes. She had visited New Haven 5 years ago during a tour of the outer colonies. She remembered the children who had presented her with flowers. She remembered the farmers who were so proud of their crops. All dead now. Who did this? She asked. Intelligence indicates it was the Hegemony Council, Admiral Vasquez replied. A coalition of 12 alien species. They've ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. And they decided to murder our people as a warning? That appears to be their intention, Madam President. Martinez opened her eyes. They were filled with cold fire. Then they have made a very serious mistake. She turned to face the room full of military commanders and government officials. Ladies and gentlemen, as of this moment, we are at war. Execute the Omega Protocol. The Omega Protocol. Most people had never heard of it. It was humanity's deepest secret, hidden even from their closest allies. When humans had first left Earth, they had made a promise to themselves. Never again would they be helpless victims. While they built peaceful colonies and traded fairly with their neighbors, they had also prepared for war, not the small conflicts that most species fought, but total war on a scale the galaxy had never seen. Admiral Vasquez activated her secure communicator. All stations, this is Solar Command. Authorization Omega-7 Alpha. Execute Wrath Fleet activation immediately. Across human space, the message was received and understood. In the asteroid belt around Seoul, massive construction facilities began opening their hidden doors. Ships emerged that had been built in secret over 5 decades. Each one was the size of a city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. In the Alpha Centauri system, underground shipyards that most people thought were mining operations revealed their true purpose. Thousands of sleek destroyers and fighters rose from their concealed berths, their crews already aboard and ready. At Kepler Station, factories that supposedly built farming equipment began producing different products. Missiles, energy weapons, and armor plating rolled off assembly lines that had been designed from the beginning to switch from peace to war production. The numbers were staggering. 50,000 dreadnought battleships, each one capable of destroying an entire enemy fleet. 200,000 destroyers built for speed and firepower. 400,000 fighters designed to swarm enemy formations like angry bees. 250,000 support ships carrying enough supplies to fight for years. 900,000 ships in total. The largest military force in galactic history. Other species had maybe a few hundred warships each. The most powerful alien empire could field perhaps 10,000 vessels. Humanity had built nearly 1 million. "How is this possible?" asked Defense Secretary Johnson, staring at the deployment reports flooding in. "We've been planning this since we left Earth," Admiral Vasquez explained. "Every colony ship that left Sol carried hidden military equipment. Every trading station had secret weapon factories. Every peaceful research facility was also a disguised military base." President Martinez watched the activation report scroll across her screen. All those years of expansion. We weren't just building colonies, were we? No, Madam President, we were building an empire's military infrastructure, and now it's time to use it. The scale was beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. While other species built ships one at a time using traditional methods, humanity had automated the entire process. Robots built robots that built warships. Artificial intelligence designed better weapons and armor. Human creativity, backed by industrial capacity that spanned star systems, had created a war machine of unimaginable power. But Admiral Vasquez wasn't finished. "Madam President, we need to discuss targets," she said. "Intelligence has identified the home systems of all 12 Hegemony Council species." Martinez studied the star charts. Each alien homeworld had billions of inhabitants. If humanity wanted revenge, they could kill more alien civilians than had ever died in galactic history. "What are our options?" she asked. "We could destroy their military forces and demand surrender," Admiral Vasquez suggested. "Or we could make an example of one species to terrify the others into submission. Or we could show them the same. Mercy, they showed our people on New Haven." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant: complete extermination. 12 species wiped from existence. President Martinez was quiet for a long time. Outside the bunker, Earth continued its daily routine. People went to work, children attended school, families ate dinner together. They had no idea that their leaders were deciding the fate of trillions of alien lives. "No," Martinez finally said. "We're not going to become monsters to defeat monsters. We'll demonstrate our power, force their surrender, and then dictate terms. But we won't commit genocide." Some of the military commanders looked disappointed. Admiral Vasquez nodded approvingly. "However," Martinez continued, her voice growing harder, "they will pay for what they did. Every single species that participated in the attack on New Haven will face human fleets at their doorstep. They will surrender unconditionally or they will be destroyed." She turned to Admiral Vasquez. "Divide the Wrath fleet into 12 armadas. I want them to arrive at all Hegemony homeworlds simultaneously. When the aliens see the size of our response, they'll understand that humanity is no longer a species to be bullied." "Yes, Madam President." "When do you want to begin the operation?" Martinez looked once more at the images of dead New Haven. Somewhere in those ruins lay the bodies of 48,000 innocent people who had died simply because they were human. "Immediately," she said. "It's time the galaxy learned what happens when you murder our children." The orders went out within the hour. 900,000 warships began moving toward jump points throughout human space. They traveled in formations so massive that their combined gravity affected local space-time. Other species' long-range sensors detected the movement and panicked. The Hegemony Council received the first reports with disbelief. Surely the humans couldn't have that many ships. It was impossible. No single species had ever fielded a fleet of such size. "Ambassador," Kethvar called an emergency session. "The reports must be wrong," he insisted. "Humans are a young species. They don't have the industrial capacity for this kind of military buildup." But the reports kept coming. Human fleets emerging from hidden bases, massive formations heading toward hegemony space, ships that shouldn't exist, carrying weapons that defied known technology limits. "We may have underestimated them," admitted Ambassador Yeleth of the Peaceful Collective. "Perhaps we should attempt to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Kethvar snarled. "We destroyed one minor colony to teach them a lesson. Now they think they can threaten Us will show them what real power looks like. He sent orders to mobilize every hegemony warship. Their combined fleets numbered nearly 100,000 vessels. It was the largest military force any alliance had ever assembled. It wasn't nearly enough. As the human armadas continued their journey through hyperspace, President Martinez made one final decision. She activated Earth's emergency broadcast system and addressed not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy. People of the cosmos, she began. 3 days ago, the Hegemony Council murdered 48,000 innocent human civilians on the colony world of New Haven. They did this without warning, without provocation, and without mercy. They believed that fear would make humanity submit to their will. They were wrong. The broadcast was transmitted to every known alien civilization. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched as the leader of humanity delivered her ultimatum. "We are coming," Martinez said simply, "not as conquerors but as justice. The species responsible for this atrocity will face the consequences of their actions. To those who were not involved, we offer friendship and trade as before. To those who participated in the murder of our people, we offer only this: surrender or be destroyed." The transmission ended. The galaxy held its breath. The sleeping giant was awake. And it was very, very angry. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, her flagship dreadnought. Through the massive viewing ports, she could see the first armada, stretching away in all directions. 75,000 human warships moved through hyperspace in perfect formation. Their destination, the Zilithian home system. "Status report," she commanded. "All armadas report on schedule, Admiral," replied Captain Torres, her communications officer. "Fleet coordination is functioning perfectly across all 12 formations." Vasquez nodded. The logistics alone should have been impossible. Coordinating 900,000 ships across multiple star systems required technology and planning that most species couldn't even imagine. But humanity had been preparing for this moment for 50 years. Each of the 12 armadas was larger than any fleet in galactic history. The smallest contained 60,000 ships. The largest, heading for the Zilithian Empire, numbered nearly 80,000 vessels. Every formation was perfectly balanced, with the right mix of battleships: destroyers, fighters, and support craft. "Estimated time to target?" Vasquez asked. 18 hours, Admiral. 18 hours until humanity announced its arrival on the galactic stage in the most dramatic way possible. Meanwhile, panic spread throughout hegemony space. On Zelithar Prime, Emperor Keth Zul called an emergency session of his war council. The proud Zilithian leader had ruled his empire for 3 centuries. He had conquered a dozen worlds and crushed rebellions without mercy. Nothing had ever threatened his power, until now. "The reports cannot be accurate," he declared, his blue skin flushed darker with anger. "No species builds fleets of this size. It violates every principle of interstellar warfare." General Vextar, his military commander, studied the latest intelligence. Reports. "Your Majesty, our deep space sensors confirm it. Nearly 80,000 human warships are approaching our territory. They will arrive within a day. Then we will destroy them," the Emperor said. "Mobilize every ship in the fleet. Call back our forces from the frontier worlds. I want 50,000 vessels ready to meet this human swarm." It was an impressive force by any standard. The Zilithian Navy was considered one of the most powerful in the galaxy. Their ships were fast, well-armed, and crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. But 50,000 ships against 80,000 was still hopeless odds. Similar scenes played out across hegemony space. The Corvan Republic recalled their exploration fleets. The Thessian Confederacy activated their reserve squadrons. The militant Order of Nexus prepared their temple ships for holy war. Every species that had voted to destroy New Haven now faced the prospect of human fleets at their doorstep. "We should have listened to the warnings," said Chancellor Yathara of the Corvan Republic during an emergency council session. "The intelligence reports about human industrial capacity were accurate." Ambassador Cathvar refused to accept the truth. "They're bluffing," he insisted. "These numbers are impossible." When we meet them in battle, we'll discover that most of their ships are empty hulls or converted cargo vessels. But other council members were not so sure. The Crystalline Collective, a neutral species that had remained outside the conflict, attempted to mediate. Ambassador Crystal Song of Peace sent urgent messages to both sides. The scale of this conflict threatens the stability of our entire region, the message stated. The collective offers to facilitate peace negotiations. Surely this matter can be resolved without bloodshed on such a massive scale. President Martinez's response was cold and direct. The time for negotiation ended when your neighbors murdered 48,000 innocent people. Justice will be served. The Hegemony Council also rejected mediation, but for different reasons. We do not negotiate with primitives, Kethvar declared. When we defeat their pathetic fleet, the humans will learn to respect their betters. As the human armadas approached their targets, other galactic civilizations watched with growing alarm. The sheer scale of the approaching conflict was beyond anything in recorded history. 900,000 human ships against 100,000 hegemony vessels. The battle would be visible from neighboring star systems. Trade routes shut down as merchant ships fled the combat zone. Diplomatic missions evacuated their personnel. Even species with no involvement in the conflict began mobilizing their own defenses, terrified that the violence might spread. On Earth, President Martinez addressed the human population. The speech was broadcast to every colony world and orbital station. My fellow humans, she began, today we face our greatest test as a species. 3 days ago, aliens murdered our people simply because we dared to reach for the stars. They believed that fear would keep us in our place. They were wrong. The cameras showed images of the massive fleets now approaching enemy space. Ships that humanity had built in secret, waiting for the day when they would be needed. For 50 years we have prepared for this moment, Martinez continued. While we built colonies and traded peacefully with our neighbors, we also built the greatest military force in galactic history, not because we wanted war, but because we refused to be victims. She paused, her expression hardening. Today the galaxy will learn that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology or our numbers. It is our absolute refusal to let our people die unavenged. In the Zilithian system, long-range sensors detected the approaching human fleet. The readings were so massive that technicians initially thought their equipment was malfunctioning. 78,437 vessels, reported the sensor officer to Emperor Keth Zul. Mass readings indicate multiple Dreadnought-class battleships larger than anything in our databases. The Emperor stared at the tactical display in growing disbelief. The human fleet was spread across space in a formation that covered millions of cubic kilometers. Each ship blazed with the energy signature of advanced weapons and defensive systems. How is this possible? He whispered. General Vextar had no answer. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider alternative options. Surrender? The Emperor's voice was a roar of rage. The Zilithian Empire does not surrender to anyone. But even as he spoke, reports arrived from across hegemony space. Every member species faced similar massive human fleets. The coordination was perfect. The timing was identical. Humanity had planned this response down to the smallest detail. Admiral Vasquez received updates from all 12 armadas as they prepared to drop out of hyperspace. All fleets report ready, Admiral, Captain Torres announced. Synchronized arrival in 30 minutes. Signal all ships, Vasquez ordered. Weapon systems to standby. Defensive screens at maximum. Broadcasting channels open on all frequencies. She had her orders from President Martinez. Humanity would offer terms first. If the aliens refused, then the consequences were on their own heads. Admiral, called out the tactical officer, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the target system. The Zilithians have assembled their entire fleet to meet us. Vasquez studied the readings. 50,000 alien ships waited in formation around their homeworld. It was an impressive sight, but she felt no fear. Humanity had not come this far to be intimidated by numbers they could easily match. They have courage, she admitted. I respect that. It won't save them, but I respect it. The final minutes counted down. Across 12 star systems, human armadas prepared to emerge from hyperspace simultaneously. The largest military operation in galactic history was about to begin. 10 minutes to arrival, reported the navigation officer. Vasquez opened a channel to all ships in her armada. This is Admiral Vasquez to all vessels. Today we speak for every human who has ever looked up at the stars and dreamed of a better future. We speak for the children of New Haven who will never grow up. We speak for humanity itself. She paused, looking out at the vast formation of human warships surrounding her flagship. Remember, we are not conquerors. We are not monsters. We are justice. When we arrive, we will offer terms. If they refuse, she didn't need to finish the sentence. 2 minutes to arrival. The galaxy held its breath. In a few moments, the balance of power would shift forever. The age of alien dominance was about to end. 30 seconds. Admiral Vasquez stood straight and proud on her bridge. Behind her came 900,000 ships and the righteous anger of humanity. All ships, prepare to drop out of hyperspace. Let's show them what happens when you murder our children. The stars shimmered. Reality bent, and humanity arrived to claim its place among the powers of the galaxy. The universe exploded into light as 900,000 human warships dropped out of hyperspace, simultaneously across 12 star systems. Admiral Elena Vasquez watched through the bridge windows as her armada materialized around Zelithar Prime. The sight was beyond magnificent. 78,000 human ships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming like silver stars against the darkness of space. The fleet stretched from the planet's inner moon to its outer asteroid belt. "My God," whispered Captain Torres. "I've trained for this my entire life, but seeing it, we look like we could swallow the sun." The Zelithian fleet waited in defensive positions around their homeworld, 50,000 ships arranged in battle lines that had never been broken. Their blue-hulled vessels were elegant and deadly, crewed by warriors who had conquered half the sector. But they looked tiny compared to the human armada. On the surface of Zelithar Prime, billions of aliens stared up at their sky in terror and wonder. The human ships were so numerous that they blocked out entire sections of stars. The combined mass of the fleet was visible to the naked eye, a second moon made of metal and fury. Zelithian vessels, Admiral Vasquez broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Human Defense Forces. 3 days ago, your government participated in the unprovoked murder of 48,000 innocent civilians on New Haven. You have one opportunity to avoid the consequences of this action." Emperor Kethzul listened to the transmission from his flagship at the center of the Zelithian formation. Around him, his officers stared at their tactical displays in disbelief. The human fleet was so large that their sensors couldn't process all the targets at once. "Terms?" he managed to ask, though his voice shook slightly. "Complete and immediate surrender of all military forces," Vasquez replied. "Withdrawal from all occupied territories outside your home system. Reparations to the families of New Haven's victims, and formal acknowledgement of humanity as a galactic power with full rights and territories." The Emperor's blue skin flushed darker with rage. "The Zelithian Empire has ruled this sector for 1,000 years. We do not surrender to anyone." "Then you have chosen extinction," Vasquez said simply. "All ships battle formation Omega. Prepare to demonstrate human resolve." But instead of opening fire on the massed Zelithian fleet, something unexpected happened. A single human dreadnought, the UES Nemesis, moved forward alone. It was massive even by human standards, over 10 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack a moon. The Nemesis positioned itself directly in front of the entire Zelithian battle line. 50,000 enemy ships against one human vessel. "This is Captain Maria Santos of the UES Nemesis," came a calm voice over the communications channels. "We offer a demonstration of human military capability. Your fleet may fire at will." Emperor Kethzul couldn't believe what he was hearing. "It's a trap," he told his officers. "One ship against our entire fleet? They must have some kind of secret weapon." But his generals were already analyzing the situation. "Your Majesty," said Admiral Vextar. "Our sensors show no unusual energy signatures, no hidden technology. It appears to be exactly what it claims to be." "Then they're insane," the Emperor declared. "All ships focus fire on the human vessel. Destroy it immediately." 50,000 Zilithian ships opened fire at once. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles filled the space around the Nemesis. The combined firepower was enough to vaporize a small planet. When the light faded, the human dreadnought remained exactly where it had been. Its shields hadn't even flickered. "Impressive," Captain Santos commented. "Our turn." The Nemesis fired. A single shot. One energy beam, targeted with perfect precision. It struck the Zilithian flagship exactly amidships, cutting through its shields and armor like they were made of paper. The massive vessel, pride of the Emperor's fleet, split in half and exploded. Emperor Keth-Zul barely escaped in a life pod as his flagship died around him. "Your Majesty," Admiral Vextar called over the emergency communications. "That ship just shrugged off our entire fleet and destroyed our most powerful vessel with one shot. What are your orders?" The Emperor floated, in his tiny escape pod, surrounded by the debris of his former flagship. Around him, the rest of his fleet waited for orders while 77,999 human ships watched silently. We surrender," he whispered. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. At the Corvin homeworld, a human fleet of 65,000 ships faced the Republic's navy. The demonstration was equally brief and devastating. At Thessia Prime, 70,000 human vessels arrived to find the Confederacy fleet already powering down their weapons. But not every species chose wisdom. The militant order of Nexus, religious fanatics who believed their gods made them invincible, refused all terms. Their temple ships opened fire on the human fleet approaching their sacred world. The response was swift and absolute. The human armada didn't bother with demonstrations. They simply erased the militant order fleet from existence in a matter of minutes. 30,000 fanatical warriors discovered that their gods offered no protection against human firepower. President Martinez received reports from all 12 armadas within the hour. 9 species had surrendered immediately. 2 had required demonstrations of force. 1 had been completely destroyed. "Casualties?" she asked Admiral Vasquez during their secure communication. "None on our side, Madam President. The enemy fleets that chose to fight were destroyed with minimal effort. The surrendering forces are being disarmed and processed." Martinez felt no satisfaction in the victory. The power humanity had revealed was terrifying, even to her. 900,000 warships, each one capable of destroying cities. They could have wiped out every hegemony world and barely noticed the effort. "What are the surrender terms?" she asked. "Complete withdrawal from all expansion territories, reparations totaling 1 trillion credits to be paid over 10 years, and formal recognition of human sovereignty over our claimed space." They've also agreed to establish embassies and open full diplomatic relations. And the others? The species that didn't participate in the attack? Every major government in this sector has sent diplomatic requests. They want to establish trade, agreements, and defense treaties with us immediately. Word of our fleet strength has spread throughout the galaxy. Martinez wasn't surprised. Fear was a powerful motivator, but so was opportunity. Humanity now controlled the largest military force in known space. Other species would want to be their allies rather than their enemies. But the president had one more question. "What about New Haven?" Admiral Vasquez's expression softened. "The first reparations payment will fund a complete restoration project. We'll clean the radiation, rebuild the cities, and establish a memorial for the victims. The world will live again, Madam President." The formal surrender ceremonies took place over the following weeks. Representatives from each defeated species traveled to Earth to sign the Terra Accords, establishing humanity's place as the galaxy's newest superpower. Emperor Keth-Zul, reduced to a minor figurehead in his own empire, stood before President Martinez in the Great Hall of the United Nations building, the same hall where humans had once dreamed of peace among the stars. "The Zilithian Empire accepts all terms of surrender," he said formally, though the words clearly pained him. "We acknowledge humanity's right to self-defense and expansion." Martinez, accepted the surrender with dignity, but her next words carried the weight of 900,000 ships behind them. "Let this be a lesson to the galaxy," she announced. "Humanity seeks peace, prosperity, and friendship with all species. But we will never again allow our people to be murdered without consequence. Attack our colonies, harm our citizens, threaten our expansion, and you will face the full wrath of Earth." The signing ceremony was broadcast throughout human space and beyond. On every colony world, in every orbital station, humans watched as their species claimed its rightful place among the powers of the galaxy. But perhaps the most important moment came later, when President Martinez stood alone in her office looking up at the stars. Admiral Vasquez found her there after midnight. "Madam President, the fleets are beginning to stand down. Most of them will return to their hidden bases within the week." "Most of them?" Martinez asked. "We're maintaining active patrols in the border regions. The galaxy needs to remember that our fleet still exists, even if they can't see all of it." Martinez nodded. "And New Haven?" "Construction ships are already en route. The memorial will be beautiful, Madam President. A garden world dedicated to those we lost, surrounded by the most advanced defensive platforms humanity can build. Nothing will ever threaten it again." The President turned away from the window. "Good. And Admiral?" "Yes, ma'am?" "Begin Phase 2 of the fleet expansion program. 900,000 ships sent a clear message. But I want to make sure we're ready if someone decides to test us again." Admiral Vasquez smiled grimly. "How many ships were you thinking?" 2 million should be sufficient for the next decade." As the Admiral left to begin humanity's next phase of military expansion, Martinez returned to the window. Somewhere out there, New Haven's ruins waited for rebirth. Beyond that, thousands of star systems held species that now knew humanity's true strength.